Midnight rain hammered the ancient mansion, its tall windows streaked with watery glimmers that caught the eerie glow from a nearby clock tower. Arthur Milton stood before an iron gate, clutching a small wooden box against his chest. Each step he took on the wet marble walkway seemed amplified in the silence, and with every echo he remembered his grandfather's warning: words, if unleashed too freely, can cut as surely as a blade. The gate creaked open. A somber-faced guard peered at Arthur, then waved him without a word. Inside, a chandelier's flickering light revealed a lofty corridor of polished floors and gilded walls. Arthur's heart thumped hard at the thought of his late night summons. He had come to meet Vincent Green, a powerful politician known for silencing all dissent. If rumor held true, Vincent did not tolerate contradiction, least of all in public. Beyond the corridor, Arthur glimpsed Vincent himself standing by a carved fireplace, tearing what looked like official documents and dropping the scraps into a brass trash bin. At the noise of Arthur's footsteps, Vincent turned with narrowed eyes. A tense moment stretched between them, but before Arthur could greet him, his attention was snared by a flicker of movement near an unlit hallway arch. Someone in a hooded coat, or perhaps a mask. When Arthur blinked, the figure had vanished into darkness. Vincent signaled Arthur toward a large display room dominated by a gleaming scale model of the city's new construction project. Towering spires of miniature steel and glass rose from a simulated foundation. A handful of engineers hovered nearby. One of them, a reserved woman named Elizabeth Swan, stood off to the side, studying Arthur with cool curiosity. Vincent looked at Arthur with a faint curl of disdain. "I hear you have ideas about improving our design. You may explain yourself, but keep it brief. I have neither the patience nor the inclination to endure lectures." Heat pricked Arthur's neck. He felt a powerful urge to defend his work with detail and passion, so he began explaining every structural calculation and material stress factor. As his words multiplied, he noticed Elizabeth's face grow intent, as though she feared he was pushing Vincent's patience. She was not wrong. In the middle of Arthur's explanation, Vincent raised a hand sharply. "Enough. Either follow the outline I gave you, add those extra columns where I said, or I terminate your contract. Is that clear?" Arthur bristled, convinced that additional columns would weaken the building's integrity in the long run. "Sir, with all respect, these columns might cause critical stress." Vincent cut him off with a glare. "Not another word. Do you understand me? You either comply or you're done." Turning, he walked out of the room, leaving Arthur under the silent stares of the others. Elizabeth approached, her calm eyes revealing neither approval nor alarm. She spoke quietly. "Vincent won't stand for opposition, especially if it comes with lengthy arguments. There is another way to make him see sense, if you're willing." Arthur left the mansion amid a swirl of conflicting thoughts. The Iron Gate clan shut behind him. Rain-slicked roads reflected the distant glow of street lamps. He needed air, but the chill night did nothing to clear the tension in his mind. The memory of Vincent's stony expression rattled him. Yet he was certain forcibly adding columns to the design could lead to a catastrophic collapse years down the line. He slowed his pace, recalling the wooden box he carried, an heirloom from his grandfather, filled with old engineering sketches and axioms like, "Proof is best served by demonstration, not dispute." Despite that wisdom, Arthur had found himself once again relying on a flood of words. Suddenly, he heard a faint rustle behind him in the dark alley by the mansion's outer wall. He turned swiftly but saw only the silhouette of a figure half concealed in the gloom. A scrap of paper fluttered onto the wet cobblestones. Arthur stepped closer, heart drumming. On the note, in a Navan handwriting, was scrawled, "Beware your tongue, or you'll lose more than this project." Instinctively, he looked around to catch whoever dropped it. The figure slipped from sight, leaving Arthur's nerves frayed. So it was not just Vincent who wanted him silent. Someone else clearly had an interest in whether Arthur spoke or remained quiet. When he finally returned to his modest apartment, he found an unexpected visitor. Waiting in the hallway, Emily Larkin, an old friend and confidant. She looked anxious. "Arthur, I heard about your run in with Vincent. Word travels fast, and not in your favor. Are you trying to sabotage yourself?" Arthur let out a jagged breath, recalling the confrontation. "He wants me to install columns that will likely damage the entire building. I can't just stand by, but every time I try to argue, I feel I'm making things worse." Emily nodded gravely. "He's a man of high status and low tolerance. You'll never sway him with words alone. There has to be a more direct proof." Arthur sensed she was echoing his grandfather's old advice. Before he could reply, his phone rang with an unknown number. A muffled voice on the other end said, "If you seek the truth, come to the Old Art Institute on Pearl Street at midnight. You'll learn what you must know." Then the line went dead. "Could be a trap," Emily muttered. Arthur weighed the warning, but felt a tug of necessity. Elizabeth had hinted at a prototype demonstration. Possibly, this was the key. With a determined look, he told Emily, "I'll go. If I don't come back, do what you must." Near midnight, Arthur arrived at the Art Institute. The building stood in near darkness, a single flickering lamp casting wavering shadows across a corridor lined with statues in half-lit alcoves. Farther in, he found a heavy steel door, aged with rust. He pushed it open, its shrill squeak echoing off the concrete walls. Inside the underground room, Elizabeth Swan stood beside a tall scale model that replicated Vincent's proposed structure. Several mechanical devices surrounded it, each seemingly designed to measure pressure, temperature, and stress loads. She greeted Arthur with a subdued smile. "You're brave," she said, her voice soft in the hush of night. "Thank you for coming." Arthur's eyes widened at the meticulously constructed model. "You're replicating the actual building conditions." Elizabeth pointed to a section representing Vincent's demanded columns. "Watch what happens if we subject this part to strong wind simulation and shifting soil pressures." She activated a machine that blasted controlled air currents. In seconds, the portion of the model started to crack and then collapsed with an alarming snap. "See, the supports are compromised. In contrast, here's your original design. Notice how it remains stable." Arthur stood stunned, adrenaline coursing through him. "We must show this to Vincent. He can't ignore hard evidence." Elizabeth lowered her voice. "Words won't change Vincent's mind, but if we set up a live demonstration at the upcoming World Business Expo, where industry experts and major stakeholders gather, everyone will witness it in real time. That's the only way to force him to acknowledge the truth." Arthur recalled the times he had argued until he was hoarse, only to be dismissed. This demonstration would speak for itself. As if echoing his thoughts, Elizabeth added, "This is how you beat someone who won't listen. Show, don't tell." Before Arthur could respond, a thud came from the corridor, and they both fell silent. Standing in the doorway was the same hooded figure. He lifted a small card and let it drop to the floor, then vanished. With dread, Arthur picked it up to find the words, "If you speak before it's time, you'll regret it." While the morning came and Arthur hurried to City Hall, determined to arrange for official permission to present his model at the World Business Expo. Yet as soon as he entered, he was mobbed by reporters. Rumors had spread that Vincent was denouncing him as incompetent. One journalist shoved a microphone in his face. "Mr. Milton, is it true you once mishandled a smaller construction job, causing near collapse?" Arthur bristled. He tried to defend himself in a flurry of technical explanations, turning more heated by the moment. Cameras flashed, capturing every expression, every word. Headlines were already forming, twisting his frustration into a sensational story. By the time he escaped their questions, he felt drained and cornered. In a short broadcast soon after, Vincent wore a confident smirk. "If Milton truly believes his claims, he'll show us proof instead of endless chatter. I have no interest in hearing him ramble." Arthur slumped in dismay at how easily Vincent seized control of the narrative. Emily found him pacing outside, fists clenched. "You're playing into his hands," she admonished. "When you throw out arguments, he exploits them against you. Stick to the demonstration." He exhaled and nodded. "We'll unveil the truth at the expo," he said, finally resolute. He won't be able to twist what people see with their own eyes. Days passed swiftly, and soon the World Business Expo arrived. Elizabeth, Emily, and Arthur spent every waking hour perfecting the model demonstration. If done correctly, no politician's spin, could obscure the physical evidence of what would happen under Vincent's modifications. The expo's main auditorium shimmered with sleek displays, throngs of attendees, and an array of flashing cameras. Arthur and Elizabeth set up their scale model on a raised stage, hooking up devices that would run simulated stress tests. The hush of anticipation rippled through the crowd. On a parallel platform, Vincent Green positioned himself, flanked by supporters. He smiled coolly at the audience, leaning into his microphone. "Let's see what our Mr. Milton has planned. I believe he has some interesting stories to show us." Arthur felt the surge of anger that always came when Vincent belittled him. But Elizabeth placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent reminder. He touched the controls for the demonstration, mind focused on the single purpose of letting the model speak for itself. Lights dimmed, and a towering screen behind Arthur displayed two animated diagrams, one of his original design, the other reflecting Vincent's pushed changes. An electronic hum filled the hall as air pressure built around the physical model on stage. In the beginning, both structures looked sturdy. Then, before the audience's very eyes, cracks appeared in the extra column design. A loud snap reverberated, and that section collapsed, scattering broken pieces and sending a collective gasp through the crowd. Meanwhile, Arthur's structure remained steady, unshaken. A wave of murmurs spread among the spectators. Vincent stepped forward, face thunderous, and shouted, "This must be a trick. I refuse to believe it's legitimate. You probably tampered with the data." Elizabeth calmly held up lab, certified papers. Independent tests confirm the accuracy of these simulations. The alterations your plan imposes lead to eventual failure. The unmodified design is structurally sound. Cameras swiveled between Vincent's outraged expression and the shattered model. Some in the crowd began to mutter about the potential disaster if such changes were implemented on a large scale. Arthur stood quietly, arms at his sides, letting the visual evidence defend him. A stern voice rose from the back of the hall. A representative from a government oversight committee stepped into view. "In light of this demonstration, an investigation must be opened. We have to ensure public safety and proper spending of state funds." Vincent's features contorted. "This demonstration is slander. I have documents to ruin Milton's credibility." He rummaged through his stack of papers, but onlookers seemed unconvinced. Another official brandished a different file that hinted at deeper misconduct. Allegations of hidden contracts to siphon off funds or store dangerous chemicals within the new site. The scene spiraled into clamor. Journalists fired pressing questions at Vincent, who struggled to keep composure. The scale model lay in pieces on one side of the stage, a mute testament to the flaws in his plan. Arthur kept his composure, recalling how many times he had allowed anger to push him into fruitless disputes. This time, he felt relief. No rhetorical flourish was needed. Everyone had seen the truth themselves. Elizabeth moved toward Arthur, speaking softly as cameras flashed. "You finally understand. The demonstration has more power than any argument." Arthur nodded. He spotted a hooded figure slipping out a side door, possibly the same one from before. For once, Arthur felt only gratitude that this silent presence had quietly guided him. Police officers soon approached Vincent. One took out handcuffs. "Vincent Green, you may be facing charges of corruption and reckless endangerment. You'll come with us." By the following morning, news outlets buzzed with the story, "Vincent Green's Fall." Photographs showed the demonstration's dramatic collapse and the stunned faces of onlookers. Arthur sat in his modest office with Emily. Unfolded on a table was the original building blueprint, now endorsed by regulators who had watched the Expo demonstration. Emily's voice was full of pride. "They've cleared your design. The city wants you to lead the construction under stricter safety protocols. No one's questioning your expertise now." Arthur closed his eyes for a moment, relief washing over him. "I only wish I'd learned sooner that words alone can be a liability when dealing with people like Vincent." A soft breeze drifted through the open window. In the corridor, he glimpsed the hooded figure again, just for an instant, as if confirming Arthur no longer needed his cryptic warnings. Then the corridor emptied, leaving Arthur with a sense of calm. He carefully opened the wooden box containing his grandfather's notes, rereading the line, "Show them what you know. Let your hands be the proof." He traced the letters with a fingertip, acknowledging at last the value of caution in speech. "Too many words can bury the truth," he whispered. "A single demonstration can reveal it." He stood and gazed out the window at the construction site, where the foundation would soon be laid for the new building. One that would stand for decades without the extra columns Vincent insisted upon. A faint memory from childhood floated through his mind. How an entire crowd once praised him for debating a teacher, only for it to cost him dearly when authority intervened. Now, he was older, maybe wiser, finally grasping that actions have a resonance words cannot match. Arthur left his office, stepping into the clear morning sunshine. Freed from the weight of endless arguments, he prepared to finish what he had started, building something that would last. Marl, O-F-T-H-E-S-T-O-R-Y, echoes of chattering footsteps, shows how easily words can inflate tension, breed distrust, and fail in the face of stubborn authority. No matter how eloquent or passionate the argument, those who thrive on power and pride can resist mere speech. Yet a concrete demonstration can break down denials and silence objections without a single fiery debate. Arthur's experience underlines the precariousness of relying on talk alone. He repeatedly argued, only to be dismissed or attacked. Ultimately, his salvation lay in letting visible, tangible evidence do the persuading. In a world where many are too proud to lose a verbal exchange, it is the undeniable clarity of proof that best reveals the truth. When arguments grow loud, let actions resonate louder.